Hi, my name is Amitha Sabbani. I'm the founder of NeuroVista, and today we're going to be going over the split brain. So, as some background information, how does the brain work? So the left hemisphere, the left cerebral hemisphere of the brain, which is the yellow part over here, that controls the right side of the body, which is color-coded over here. The right hemisphere, on the other hand, that controls the left side of the body. So you can kind of think of it as an inverse relationship, or if you'd like, this is probably an easier way, you can kind of think of it as a cross. Each hemisphere of the brain, it operates on the opposite side of the body. So as an overview for today, we're going to be covering over just the general concepts that we need to know to understand today's lesson. So this is a bird's eye view of the brain, and the brain has two main hemispheres. That's the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere, that's responsible for your movements and recognizing faces. Your left hemisphere, that's responsible for your speech. So that's your communication pretty much. So for this lesson specifically, we're going to be only focusing on the recognizing faces part of the responsibility for the right hemisphere. The movements part we're not going to really be focusing much on until the end, so you can kind of put that into the back of your brain. But remember the responsibilities of each hemisphere, as that will come into handy later on in this lesson. So, what is communicating this information on both of these parts of the both of these hemispheres of the brain? Remember that they have different functions, the hemispheres of the brain. So what is really passing on that information to each other? That is the responsibility of the corpus callosum. And that's really the blue part over here. It's kind of in the middle of the brain, and that's going to transmit or convey the information from each hemisphere to the other hemisphere. So all that information really has the ability to circulate all around your brain. So, to understand the split brain, we must look at the split brain experiment. I'm going to be covering the findings of that, really the conclusion of what was really learned from that, so that we can really understand what the split brain is. And this experiment was conducted by Roger Sherry. Now, before I actually get into the slide, I do want to say that everything from here on out, every slide from here on out, will be with the corpus callosum, which again is the thing that's conveying the information between hemispheres. That's going to be severed or cut in this case. And with this being cut, we can't really transmit information from different hemispheres of the brain, so they really are able to have those distinct functions at this point with the corpus callosum cut. So, the visual fields. The right visual field is over here, and this is really how much it can kind of look at, and this is the left visual field, and this is how much it can really see. So, kind of following the same example with that body and that brain kind of X relationship, this has the same relationship of an X, where the left visual field, that has the X shape again, so that's going to go travel to the right cerebral hemisphere, and then the right visual field, that's going to travel to the left cerebral hemisphere. Now, notice at the bottom over here, they can't really intersect. They kind of just have to stop at their part of the brain at this outline, just because, again, the corpus callosum is cut in this case, and so if it's severed, they can't really convey information to each other. So they kind of just end there. That information is just retained in whatever hemisphere it's in. It doesn't really transmit, or it doesn't really travel to the other hemisphere of the brain. So let's go through some examples. I will guide you through the first one, and then you can try the other two by yourself. So let's think about the following questions. Which hemisphere does the information, which is Albert Einstein's picture in this case, travel to? So again, which hemisphere does this information travel to? So if we look at this picture over here, Albert Einstein's picture is on our left visual field. And so therefore, kind of following that cross-like relationship, that cross pattern, it's going to travel this way. And that's going to go into the right cerebral hemisphere. So that's the answer. It's going to go into the right cerebral hemisphere. So how is this information stored is our second question. If you remember, and I kind of went over this before, the right part of the brain, or the right hemisphere, that's responsible for your movements and also recognizing faces. Again, I said in the beginning, we're going to be focusing on the recognizing faces part of this lesson, and so we're going to be saying that the information is stored by recognizing the face. Now you may be wondering, how is your brain going to recognize the face? And that's a really good question. And if you look over here, this is how it's going to recognize your face. It's going to make some kind of connection with another face. It may just end up just recognizing the face as it is, or it may make a little connection to something else. In this case, it's making a connection to a caricature of Albert Einstein. And you could kind of see the resemblance of the face, and so that's how it's really storing that information as a caricature. So, go ahead and try this example by yourself. It's going to ask which hemisphere does the information, in this case that's Benjamin Franklin's picture, which hemisphere does that travel to? And how is that information stored? So go ahead and pause the video and try to figure this one out by yourself. Alright, so Benjamin Franklin's picture, that's on the right visual field, and so again, following that cross-like relationship, it's going to travel this way to the left cerebral hemisphere. And that's going to answer the first part of the question, but that's also going to kind of lead to the second answer. So how is this information stored? If you recall, the left cerebral hemisphere, that's responsible for your speech. So, if it's responsible for your speech, it's going to recognize that this is Benjamin Franklin through speech, through communication. So, what it's going to say is, that's Benjamin Franklin. Another example could be, that picture shows Benjamin Franklin. Different variations of that, but in the end, will recognize Benjamin Franklin through speech. So, this is a bit of a tricky one, but you kind of just have to combine both of the examples that we looked through. Which hemisphere does each piece of information, so both of these, Albert Einstein and Benjamin Franklin's picture, travel to? So for each of these, find which hemisphere it travels to, that information, and then how is this information stored in each hemisphere. So go ahead and pause the video again and try to figure this one out by yourself. Alright, so this again, as I said before, it kind of just combines everything. So if Albert Einstein is on the left visual field, it's going to travel to the right cerebral hemisphere, and that's controlling your ability to recognize faces. So you're going to remember, again, the caricature in this case of Albert Einstein. You're going to recognize his face. Now, on the right visual field, I should say, that goes to the left cerebral hemisphere, and that's responsible for your speech. So we're going to recognize Benjamin Franklin's picture through speech, with a statement like, that's Benjamin Franklin again. So as you can see, it does exactly that. It follows that cross over here. And so this is really what the split brain is. So going back to the beginning, how the brain works. The left hemisphere, the yellow part of the brain, that controls the right side of the body, and then the right hemisphere, the green part of the brain, that really controls the left side of the body. And this is color-coded, so you can rely on the colors in this case. Again, the cross pattern. So, here's a bit more of practice with visual fields, but in this case, we're not going to be looking at the cerebral hemispheres. We're going to be tying everything in. In this lesson, we talked about our visual fields and how that gives information to our cerebral hemispheres, and then how that really controls our body. So we're going to be making that connection with the body now. So, a human may point to Benjamin Franklin. So Benjamin Franklin's on the right visual field, that travels to the left cerebral hemisphere, and that's going to be going to the right part of the body. So it's like two patterns of X's. So it's going to be, when you see Benjamin Franklin, when you see his image, you're going to be pointing to Benjamin Franklin with your right hand. Now Albert Einstein, it kind of follows the same thing. We're going to be going to the right hemisphere this time, and then we're going to be going to the left part of the body. And therefore, you're going to be using your left hand to point at Albert Einstein's picture. So, some closing remarks. So all of this information is coming through NeuroVista. It's an organization that's open to all high schoolers and above. So if you're in college and you'd like to join, you can also join. The positions open as of now are the researcher, editor, event coordinator, social media manager, and YouTube content creator. There are more positions coming up soon, and we will give you guys updates whenever those are open. The link to these position descriptions and the applications itself are in the description below, so if you're interested, please do check that out. And also, please do comment down below what you'd like to see as a lesson next for NeuroVista's YouTube channel. Other than that, I'll see you next time, and thank you for watching.